The trans pipeline. What is it? Have I experienced it? Spoiler alert, I have. And why am I sitting so far away? Why are you sitting so close?
The pipeline. I haven't heard that name in years. Ultimately, going through a pipeline is just identifying as a lot of things until you find what feels like, what fits like a glove, what feels right. And so my pipeline, because this is a video about my journey from non-binary to trans man, thought I was a lesbian, then non-binary, trans mask, trans man. Hey, nice to meet you. This has been, so my gender identity has been something I have questioned literally since I could remember. Literally, like, my first thoughts that I had was literally anytime I could make a wish, literally at my birthday party, at a wishing well, at a wishing fountain, my wish would be, I wish to wake up the next day a boy. And then I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh man. So that's a little bit about me. So yeah, it's been something I've been dealing with for a long time. And then when I realized what it meant to be trans, I was like, oh, not identifying with the gender you were assigned at birth? Yeah, that seems like me. Am I gonna tell anyone about that? No. Am I gonna further think about it? Also no. Am I gonna repress that? Oh yeah. And like a lot of people in 2020, I finally realized, oh, I have time to think about stuff, and maybe I should explore why I don't think I had crushes on any guys when I was younger, and also why I thought I was a guy when I was younger. And so, came to the conclusion that I'm attracted to women. And then I was trying to figure out my gender identity, and I was like, well, I repressed the fact that I'm trans, so maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm just non-binary, because, I mean, I really don't feel like a man, and I really don't feel like a woman. I really don't feel like a woman, but like, you know, maybe I'm just something in the middle of it all. And so that stuck for a while. That felt right. Just like when I was younger and I was called a tomboy, that felt right until it didn't. Anyway, I came out to people. I had them using they, them pronouns for me. I was my girlfriend's partner. I was people's kid. You know, stuff like that. That felt right. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I mean, yes, this feels nice not being seen as a woman, but like not having people see me and not knowing if I'm a boy or a girl, or not really knowing who I am, that makes me uncomfortable. And then eventually they, them pronouns also became uncomfortable, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. For me, being non-binary was a stepping stone. It was a place for me to explore what it was to be, to not be a woman, pretty much. But obviously, that's not what being non-binary is. It is not a stepping stone, a middle ground before you move on to something else. It literally is people's experiences. I just want to state that. But ultimately, it took me a while to figure out that I wasn't not non-binary. And I was like, literally like, I need a therapist to tell me what I am. And is there a test out there that can tell you for a fact what your identity is? No, there isn't. Sorry to break it to you guys. Even my therapist, I was like, hey, so I think like in some of these sessions, I want to try to figure out if I'm non-binary or a trans guy. And then she was like, well, mind you, she's a middle-aged white woman, straight white woman. And she was like, well, I mean, she did spit some facts though. She said, well, you know, being trans is like a new thing for people who obviously aren't in the community, and they will never like fully understand all of it and the concepts of it, and whatever your experiences will never fit into like what society knows or whatever. Anyway, she gave me a very convoluted answer for, I just wanted to know who I was, and I was like, okay, so this is gonna be a personal journey that I take. Got it. Not one to take with a middle-aged white woman in a 3x3 room. Some things that like, one of the main things that kept me from identifying as a man was kind of crazy. My girlfriend, my fiance actually, says like, that's like literally so big of you. I was like, well, I don't want to become a man because everyone hates men. Which, whoa, let's unpack a few things there. I had that thought because a lot of media I was consuming was a lot of things about like, guys are the worst, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, with my mature mindset now, but really what that hatred was focused towards was toxic masculinity and men who aren't emotionally aware or emotionally intelligent and all this stuff. And so I was like, oh, okay. So like, people do like guys. Men aren't the worst thing in the world. There's like some good ones out there. And I was like, okay, so like if I'm emotionally available, if I'm a decent person and I'm not being misogynistic and I can, you know, be a good guy, then I shouldn't have any problem with identifying as a guy. And then another thing that really helped, not saying you have to do this, but it just happened to be a project that was assigned to me in one of my college classes, it was an open-ended research project. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this time to research what masculinity means to me. And at that time, I was able to do a lot of self-reflection and also research on different definitions of masculinity. And through my readings and my research, I found out that you can't answer what masculinity is in one sentence because, number one, there's more than one definition that there would be, and there's so many different types of masculinity. The main three that I can think of is like toxic masculinity, traditional masculinity, and new age masculinity. And ultimately came to the conclusion, okay, obviously everyone comes in different shapes and sizes, everyone has different experiences, therefore meaning that there's obviously different types of men, and so I could decide what type of man I wanted to be and didn't have to be one that would essentially be hated. And like another thing, what took me a while to come to this conclusion is I didn't want to like say goodbye to everything woman, because like when you look at women, or like at least for me, like women are so powerful, women are so awesome, the things they're able to do, like girlhood, all these different things, like they're like uplifting each other, and like getting to watch my fiance hanging out with her girlfriends, like they're having such a ball, but like that was nothing I was ever connected to. I can appreciate it and admire it, but it's not part of my experience, you know? But like I was grieving that I was gonna be losing that, but realizing that there's an awesome community of trans guys, like you can make that space for yourself with the people you surround yourself with, you know? Another thing that helped was when I started testosterone and started passing more as a guy, and people, you know, like being like, all right, I can help you over here, sir. Like I was like, oh, okay. When I'm hearing these things, I'm not cringing, and like I don't feel like all weird inside. And so I was like, okay, so I actually realized I am comfortable with this, and I actually happen to like this. So maybe this is the answer and what I was looking for. So like ultimately, why I didn't feel comfortable with being non-binary is because I didn't feel like I was in the middle. I always felt more attached to masculinity, and I've ultimately, you get to decide what feels right to you, and this is just what feels right to me and the conclusion I've come to. And I mean, I feel at peace with this. I look in the mirror, I'm like, that's a guy, I'm a guy. And ultimately, if I like start really further, like really trying to dissect it and be like, ultimately, why do you really feel this way? How did you ultimately come to this? It makes my brain hurt. It makes me feel like my head's gonna explode, and I'm gonna have to start the whole process all over again. Even like, well, not really, but you know, it just hurts my head to think about it. Like trying to think about space and the ocean and how big those two things are, and like we haven't even explored all of those things. It's like, you know, identifying as a guy and being seen as a man makes me happy, so that should just be it, right? Like it can just be that simple, right? And yeah, it can. And a little callback, you know, when I was reflecting on the fact that what I did as a kid of making wishes, and I was also saying prayers at night hoping to God, please make me a boy, like please. And I thought like my wishes never were answered, or my prayers were never answered. But then I realized, woke up today, I'm a boy. My wish did get granted. I had to do some intervention in there to make it come true. You are ultimately the one in charge of your happiness and what you want to be. And that's not even just like with gender, you know, like that applies to so many other things. So follow your dreams, make some goals, make yourself happy. Ultimately, I wanted to make this video because, again, I'm 22. I've been dealing with this off and on for like the past, it feels like 5 years. Yeah, basically 5 years. And now that I've come to this conclusion in the last couple of months, I'm happy. The voices in my head are quiet. I know who I am. It's nice, and so I really hope that if you two are struggling with trying to figure out who you are, that this was able to help you try to come to any conclusions. What has really helped me is just listening to other people's experiences and seeing if I relate or not. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. And if you're still watching at this point, what is your favorite Spider-Man thing that I got going on back here? I've got Lego Spider-Man, Spider-Man mug, and Spider-Man posters, and an off-brand Spider-Man Squishmallow. Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for letting me have this place to just talk and finally talk about things that I've wanted to since I was literally 12. All right. Bye.